Okay, so pages 168 through 171, we're opening green space Prez, which stands for presentation. Has anyone in here ever used Prezi to create presentations? Yeah, I like Prezi. I especially like that it's free. I think you can buy a version that actually gives you more, but the free version does everything that I've needed it to do. Okay, once you have it open, I want you to save it. Save it in the folder you've created for this class so that I can see it. Make sure it's inside of that folder, not just right on your OneDrive account. And I will put the name in mine so you can see what it's. I already have it saved, so I'm not going to save over it. Maybe I've noticed the internet in this building has been very, very slow. Yesterday in 34, it was very slow. Okay, and here is what you are naming it. You can see that it's P for PowerPoint, dash C4 for Chapter 4, dash A2 for Assessment 2, dash Green Space Prez. So P dash C4 dash A2 dash Green Space Prez. If you're following along in the book, that's on step number 1. If you're struggling in here, I would recommend having your textbook with you because we work out of it almost every single day. And I know some of you are sharing, and that is just fine. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, I'm going to cancel because I already have mine saved. I don't want to save over what I've already done. Yes? It won't let you? No. I had a couple this morning that did that. Okay, okay. And then Is anyone else having a problem opening it? Because this morning I had some students that had troubles also. And once we tried it the second time, it usually worked, but there's always a possibility. Okay, don't keep looking because it just makes it go slower. Did you by any chance put that button in there as a cancel? Okay, you can't do that because what you do is cancel the document. Go close. Yeah. So you get that little message and it says cancel. Don't click it. So get that. See this error message right here has to do with the network. I may have you switch computers. What? Yep, save it into your folder that you have created for this class, the one you shared with me. Go back on the second thing. Second class period. Anybody else having issues? Yesterday we had to restart one computer because it absolutely would not open. Okay, we're going to start on step number 2. It says insert the slide shown in figure 4.18 with the following specs. If you look on page 169 at that thumbnail, that's what we're going to be creating, but it does give us the steps to do that. So we're going to follow those. We're going to make slide 2 the active slide. So click on slide 2. You're in normal view, and in the left-hand bar you have the thumbnails. So click the second slide and make it active. We're going to insert a new slide with a blank layout. On the Home tab, on the New Layout button, you're going to click the arrow. And from here, we can choose different slides. Before, we just clicked the New Slide button, and it automatically went to title and content. But now we're choosing the blank layout. So New Slide, blank. We're going to insert some word art text, and then we'll format it. So click the Insert tab, and on the far right, I guess it's not really, it's the far middle right, the middle right, I don't know. On my laptop, it's a lot further to the right than it is up here. You see the word art link, click the drop-down arrow. The one you're going to choose is this option right here. It's the Pattern Fill Gold, if my mouse will stay there, Pattern Fill Gold Accent 3 Narrow Horizontal Inner Shadow. What's your question? Do you have a question? Something not working the way it's supposed to? I didn't click the arrow. There you go. Good. All right, that's why you have friends sit next to you. Okay, so insert word art, and this is the option you choose. It's that fourth row, second column. And it tells you that in 2B, it says insert the word art text using Pattern Fill, Gold, Accent 3, Narrow, Horizontal, Inner Shadow. It's this one. We can go ahead and type our text now. Think spring with an exclamation point. Think spring. I kind of want to think spring on a day like today. I like fall weather, but I don't like the wind. And I guess if I live in Kansas, I better get used to it. Okay, we're going to change the shape of this word art. On the Drawing Tools Format tab, we're going to choose the text effects. Make sure it's not the shape effects. Make sure it's text effects. Click the drop-down arrow, go down to Transform, and the book tells us to choose Wave 1, which is actually this one. It's the 5th row beneath the warp, and it's the very first column. And it's called Wave 1. There are a lot of neat, some of them look terrible, but some of them are really neat, but we're going to choose the Wave 1. Now we're going to change the height and width of this word art box. Make sure it's still selected so you still see these sizing handles around it. On the Drawing Tools Format tab, the height is going to be 4 inches. So instead of clicking your up arrow button a whole bunch of times, just highlight what's there and type 4 and press enter. And on the width, highlight it and change it to 10. Now it kind of goes off of our page a little bit, off of our slide. So we're going to center it, and we're going to do that by distributing it horizontally and vertically. So on this same ribbon, the same tab, sorry I have all this stuff here in the way, let me move it out of the way. On this same Drawing Tools Format tab to the right, you see where it says Align. Now yours might be smaller. On my other computer screen, Align was actually small. Click that drop-down arrow, and it says Distribute Horizontally. And then choose it again and choose Distribute Vertically. So you just centered it to the left and right and centered it top and bottom, horizontally and vertically. You could probably try to eyeball it, and if you're really good, you would probably get it close. You'll see in a little bit how we will be able to get some smart guides that will show us kind of where it's centered without having to do that. Yes? Make sure the box is selected. And you get this new toolbar. It says drawing tools format. And on the far right, it says height and width. Okay, let me come and look. Okay, so click on the box itself. Okay, now go format. And so height, choose 4. Just highlight it and type 4. And then highlight the width and type 10. And then go on. Just really hold on to it. And go back to the one just right there. Okay. And we will have it. I don't know. Yeah, click on it. And go back to the Okay, now we're going to, we're on step 2F if you're following along. We're going to display the format background task pane. There's more than one way to do this. I'm going to click on the Design tab. And on the far right, it says Format Background. If you know another way to get to Format Background, it's okay, you can use it, because it doesn't matter how you get to this Format Background. What matters is that you get there. And there is more than one way to get this Format Background task pane to show up. I just chose Design tab, and on the far right, I went to Format Background. We are going to make sure there is a check mark right here where it says Hide Background Graphics under the Fill section. So put a check mark in there, because we don't want to see those graphics that are on this slide. And then we're changing the gradient, the preset gradient. So in the presets gradient area, click the drop-down arrow, and we're choosing this option, Light Gradient Accent 3. And as soon as you click on it, it actually will look different than what you think that it looks from the preview. Do not click Apply to All. Do not, because if you do that, those settings will change every one of your slides, and we only want it to affect slide 3. Now, step 3 says to insert the slide shown in figure 4.19. That's on page 170. You can see the thumbnail slide there. And we're going to do that by following these steps. So make slide 8 active. So click on slide 8. Insert a new slide with the title only layout. So the Home tab. Click the drop-down arrow to New Slide and choose Title Only. The title is English, French, translations. English, French, translations. Does anyone in here speak French? That makes sense. I used to, when I taught in Cunningham, the teacher across the hall from me was the Spanish teacher, but she also taught French if there were any students who wanted to take it. And one year we had one student who took French. And so I would hear her speaking French. And I took Spanish in high school. Doesn't mean that I can speak it. I can't converse in Spanish. I can understand just a tiny little bit, but I can't speak it. I would love to, but I don't get to practice it enough to be able to have those conversations. But she is so fluent in Spanish and French. I would love listening to her talk. And French, you know, is a Romance language, the romantic language. So there you go, Ashton. You can use that. Yeah, they call that a romantic language. So the Cunningham High School students have what's called a German exchange program. For 2 weeks, it's happening right now. For 2 weeks, there are some German students from Prietz, Germany who come over and stay with American students at Cunningham. And then in the spring, those American students from Cunningham go to Prietz, Germany and stay there for 2 weeks. And anyway, a lot of those German students, they know at least 3 languages. One of them is French. And they obviously know English. They're required to know English, and then German. And German is not a romantic language. If you know German, not a romantic language. And a lot of them know Latin too. So I'm just throwing that in here. So that's good. Maybe you can pronounce some of this stuff for us. I had no one in my last class. We weren't sure how to pronounce the very first one. That means ash. So maybe you can help us out with that. All right, so on step 3C, it says to insert a text box. So we're gonna click on the Insert tab, and we're gonna choose text box. Now it's different than Word because in Word, we get some options for a text box, and one of those is to draw. By default in PowerPoint, we always draw a text box. So we click the button, we get a new little symbol, and we're just gonna click and drag a text box. Make sure it's about as big as mine. A length doesn't matter as much as width. Okay, I'll come over and help. Okay, don't keep clicking on. Go to insert, click the text box button. Can't just click, just put the drag. Now you can resize it. Click and drag. Okay, you got it now. Click and drag, make it big enough. Okay, the height doesn't really matter so much because as we type, it will become bigger, should. I've run into a lot of things that don't always work the way I think they should. We're going to change the font size to 28 points. If you should have a blinking cursor inside this text box. I guess it's not blinking, but if you should have that little bar right here. If you don't, you need to right click on this and say edit text. Yes?
Why don't we just use the title of content?
It's a very good question. I would have, but I think that they are just wanting to show us how to put a text box in. Okay, that's a good question. It would have made sense, wouldn't it? Those are pre-formatted with bullets, but we can always take those out. So. Now, if you choose title and content, do you think that I'm going to know versus doing it the way I wouldn't know? Okay. All right, so we're going to change the font to 28 points. And we're going to create some tabs. So we're inside this text box. We're on the Home tab. Go to the Paragraph Gallery. It's right here. And you're going to expand it by clicking this arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of that group. When you do that, you get this paragraph dialog box that shows up. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a button that says Tabs. Go ahead and select it so we get a tab dialog box. And the book tells us we're setting 2 tabs. The first one is at the 1-inch marker. So it says tab stop position. We're going to type a 1. It is a left tab. We're going to click set. Notice there are no dot leaders in here. Did you notice that? Okay, and then we're going to add one more. So the tab stop position, right now it says 1. We're going to highlight it and type 5.5. It is a left tab. We're going to click set. So now it shows that I have 2 tabs set, a 1-inch tab and a 5.5-inch tab, 5.5. Click OK. Click OK again. Now we can turn to page 170 and type these 2 columns. Make sure we press tab and type English name, tab again, French name. Now I'm going to tell you, don't include, I think that's called like a circumflex. Is that what that's called? The little caret symbol above the E. Just type a regular E. We'll fix that in a minute. Or the accents, just leave those off for now. So here's what you should have when you're all done with those 2 columns. And yes, Word will underline those with red because they don't recognize the French language. It's not in their dictionary. So it will say that all of these words are misspelled. They're not. Make sure you press that tab before this first column. When I first did this, that's what I was missing. Was pressing that tab in the first column. Here's another thing that I probably wouldn't do, Brendan. I would probably just make my text box, move my text box over to where it needed to be and not worry about that first tab. But I didn't create this assessment, so.
I didn't want to know to sort of read.
No, I'm guessing it's just so we knew that we could put the text box in and then format it. So there will be some things to do. Okay, now let's bold this first line, English name, French name. And now the French name, can you help us out, Ashton? What is this first word for ash? I don't know how to pronounce those with the E with the, I think it's called a circumflex. I don't really know though. Okay. That's good. That's the best one I've heard all day. Okay, we're going to take this first E in this French name for ash, and we're going to insert a symbol. So let's highlight that first E. Just select it. Just click and drag through it. If you have trouble just selecting one letter, you can always use the Shift key and your arrow keys to do one letter at a time. Click the Insert tab. And on the far right, it says symbol. It actually has an ohm symbol here. If you click on that symbol, we will be able to find the E that we need if we arrow down. I was thinking in my other class I had to arrow up, but arrow down until you find, you'll find several lowercase e's with the symbols above them. Yeah, it is called a circumflex. So Latin small letter E with a circumflex. And click Insert. It will replace the E that's there with the E that has the circumflex above it. And then we have to close our Insert Symbols dialog box. Select the first E in that second word, go back to Insert Symbol, and find the E with the accent above it. Now I'm only going to do this one time, and make sure it's the accent that goes to the left. I call it an accent. Look here, they're calling it a grave. Has anyone else heard of it called that? I learn something new every day. I love learning new things. So a Latin small letter E with grave. That's interesting. I'm only going to insert it one time, and then I'm going to copy and paste it in the other two places because I think that's easier. So no, I've inserted the symbol. Now I can copy it. I can paste it. And when I do that, it actually took away my paragraph marker at the end of the line, so I have to press Enter. And then also down here on the Cypress. So I have 3 E's with the accent and 1 E with the circumflex, or the caret, or the raised to the power of. Did you know that you can actually download a program for your computer? So if you use these symbols a lot, that you can just, there's like if you press the E 2 times, it does what you need it to do. The Spanish teacher in Cunningham used that all the time. So she could type her Spanish assignments. I thought that was really neat. There are also shortcut keys. You could set those. So if you use it all the time, you could set a shortcut key on your keyboard so that you could just, you know, press like Alt-E and it would do it. But you could set that. So if it's something you use all the time, it's a really neat option. Okay. Okay, and then it tells us to move our text box so it is lined up where it should be. This is where let's click the View tab. And in the Show Gallery, you have an option to turn your grid lines on. Let's put a check mark in there so you can actually see this dotted grid. Those don't print, they're just there to help you. When we do that, we get what's called Smart Guides, and I'm going to click on this box, the text box we just created. I'm going to click on the boundary around it. I get the crosshairs, and I'm going to move it to the left because my E in English needs to line up with this I. And you'll see I get like some red Smart Guides once in a while. Just line it up. I'm just looking at the page on page 170, and it looks like this E is lined up with that I. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to know that you can move it around, that you can turn those guides on. They are really helpful. And if you don't like them, you can turn them off. Just deselect the check and grid lines. Okay, we're ready for step number 4. Make slide 4 active and make the following changes. We're going to select this text that's bulleted. So go ahead and click and drag through all of the bulleted text. We're going to double space this text by clicking on the Home tab. You have a line spacing button. It's in a little bit of a different place than in Word. But it's if you put your mouse over it, it says line spacing, and my mouse is there right now so you can see where it is. Click the drop-down arrow and just choose 2. Now, as soon as you did that, it resized the font because it needed to fit it within this text box. We're also going to change this and put it in 2 columns. So right below the line spacing and to the left, you have the columns, add or remove columns. Click the drop-down arrow and choose 2 columns. Now there may be times when you have to go down to more columns if it tells you to change the spacing between the columns, but in our case, we can just click 2 columns. Did you have a question? Did you get it figured out? Okay. And it will look like this. Once again, it resizes the font, so it will fit it within this text box. So we've double spaced it, we've put it in 2 columns. However, our columns are uneven. We have one more flower type in the first column, then we do the second. We're just going to resize our text box. So you can go to this sizing handle in the bottom center, and drag it up, and it forces Primrose into the second column. So now our 2 columns are even. And it tells us that somewhere in those steps. It says size the placeholder so 4 bulleted items display in each column. Yes? How do you, did you select, make sure you select text? Yeah. Now just drag that size of the so it forces that to the column. Okay, now we're going to make slide 5 the active slide. This is the one we're changing a little bit. We're going to insert some clip art, but the clip art that the book tells us to find is not available. We'll search what they tell us to search, but just know you won't find the clip art from page 170. So click the Insert tab, choose Online Pictures, just like in Microsoft Word, just like in Excel. We're going to choose Watering, Can, Gardening, if I can spell, Tools. A watering can, gardening tools. That's what the book tells us to search, but we won't find the image they have in the book, and that's okay. We're going to choose the second option, this black and white picture of the watering can. So you searched for watering can, gardening tools. We're choosing the second picture. Go ahead and click Insert. If your second picture isn't this one, go ahead and find this one because we'll make a few changes to it that the book doesn't have. It tells us to flip the image horizontally, but when we do that, it actually will turn our can the other direction. If you look on page 170, you'll see the watering can is pointed towards the text, which is what our graphic is doing. So just look up here for a minute. If we were to rotate it or flip it horizontally, we would go to the Format tab, Rotate, Flip Horizontal. But when I do that, it flips it the wrong way, so that's why we're not going to select it. We're going to leave it the direction that it is. We might rotate it a little bit when we're finished. We are going to change the height of the image. The book tells us 4 inches, but that makes it pretty small, so we're going to change it to 6.5. So Picture Tools Format on the far right, change the height to 6.5. It will automatically change the width because it's in proportion. It's called an aspect ratio. We would have to expand that size gallery dialog box in order to unlock that aspect ratio if we did want it to be wider than it is tall. Okay, we are going to position it though. Is your task pane open over here on the right-hand side? Yeah, mine wasn't either when I did this the first time. So let's right-click on the picture and go down to the bottom that says Format Picture. That will get that Format Picture task pane open on the right-hand side. There is another way to do that. If you know another way, that's fine. We have 4 options to click on. We're going to choose the one that says Size and Properties. It's this little icon right here. Now click the arrow next to Position to expand the position. And the book tells us to change the horizontal position to 6 and the vertical to 2.2. So horizontal position, highlight the text that's there and choose 6. The vertical position, highlight the text and choose 2.2. It's easier than clicking those little arrows. Now that didn't work. Didn't put it where I think it should go. So just click on the inside of your picture and drag it. I just line the top white up with that black border up at the top, and it's really where it should be. The reason for that is because we made it bigger than 4 inches. We have so much space around it. Okay, now this particular piece of clip art came in with this white background. And if we leave it like this, it looks terrible, I think, from a graphic standpoint. Some of you are in a graphics class and you could go into Photoshop and make a bunch of changes to this, but we're obviously not going to do that. We are, however, going to remove the background so this white does not show. So on this Picture Tools Format tab, on the far left, it says Remove Background. I want you to click that. Most of the parts that were white became purple. We're going to choose Mark Areas to Remove. It's this red with the minus sign in it, and click somewhere in that purple. It really doesn't matter where you click. It will remove everything that looks purple in our view. Now, some of this white will still be here, and I'm not going to be too worried about that. Now, click the check mark. It says Keep Changes. So we've removed our background from this picture. This worked on this clip art. It will not always work. I had a student that brought a picture in of a yellow lab, and you guys probably know they're pretty light color. And she went to remove the white background, and it removed like half of the color of the dog all over the place. So her slide background showed through. So we had to take that picture into Photoshop and edit it and then bring it back in. So it does not work with every clip art or every picture, but it does work with quite a few. You can remove the background. Yes? It wouldn't remove it? All right, so we're finished with this slide. We added the clip art. We made some changes to it. We could probably rotate it. At the top of the picture, you see the little circle And if I put my mouse over it, I get a rotate tool. I can manually click on it and maybe rotate it a little. It's not necessary, but you know, it's an option. You could also go to rotate and do an arbitrary rotation, which it's so much easier just to do it right here. Unless you know the exact degrees you need to rotate it. Okay, now we're moving on to step 6. Make slide 9 active. Make slide 9 active. We're going to insert a new slide with the title only layout. Did you have a question, Andrew? Okay, just stretching. So we selected slide 9. We inserted a new slide with the title only layout. The title is Gardening Magazines. Gardening Magazines. And if you look on page 171, you'll see what it is that we're creating. Next, we're going to insert a shape. So click the Insert tab, choose Shape. And we're just going to choose a rectangle shape. And we're going to draw beneath the title. And I would say very similar to the size that I just made because we're going to resize it. So about this size. As soon as you draw it, we'll change the height and width of it as soon as we change it to a bevel. The directions tell us to create the shape using the bevel shape. So we created a rectangle, and now we have a new Drawing Tools Format tab that shows up. Click on the Shape Effects drop-down arrow. Choose Bevel. And it's this option right here. It's the angled bevel. So I have my mouse pointed on there. It says angle. So it gives us those sharp beveled edges. Now we can change the height and width of this shape on the Drawing Tools Format tab. The height is 1.1 and the width is 10. So now everyone's shape is exactly the same size. Now I want you to right-click on this shape and go to Edit Text, or just, I think just right-click Edit Text. Change the font size to 32 points. And you're going to have to change your text to black, your font color to black, because by default it's going to have it be white because of the color of the shape. So we need to change it to black. And if you turn to page 171, you can see that in this first shape, we're typing Better Homes and Gardens. So it's size 32, and we had to change the color to black, or it would be white. Better Homes and Gardens. We also need to insert a registered trademark symbol. Click the Insert tab. Go over to Symbol. It is one of the recently used symbols because it's very commonly used. It's the circle with the R in the center, or the R with the circle around it. It stands for Registered Trademark. Click Insert, and then you can close it. So we have the very first shape selected or created. I'm going to close this task pane on the right-hand side just so it gives me more room to work. Yes, what's your question? Insert shape. Change the height and width. Height is 1.1, width is 10. And then type this text in there. Okay, we're going to copy this, so make sure it's selected. Just click on it one time. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it 2 times. So once you copy it, you just paste, and then paste again. So we have 3 of them. Then we're going to arrange them so they're pretty evenly spaced. Notice those little red guides. They don't always stay very long, but I have a red guide on the left side showing me that I'm aligned on the left. And then on the right, I get those double arrows showing me that my spacing, there we go, is exactly the same between the 2. So I did my bottom one first, then I went and did the middle one. Yours may not be spaced exactly like mine. You might have yours a little closer together. If that's the case, notice those little red arrows again. It shows me that my gap is the same between them both. And now we just need to go in and edit the text for the 2. The middle one is home and garden. Whoops. And the last one, leave that registered trademark symbol, but it's organic gardening. So we have 3 shapes. We only drew the 1 shape, and then we formatted it the way that we needed it to be. And we added our text and our symbol, and then we copied it, pasted it 2 times, rearranged it, and then retyped. Okay, right click on it and go ahead. Next. Is it already grouped together? And you can choose group there. I just wanted to Does everybody else have that? Oh, that's the same thing I just talked about. So I'm doing okay, so when you copy this, you've already got a copy. That is for the paste. Don't choose the second option. Yeah. If you choose the second option, it does it as a Okay, so just arrange it now. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, something we're learning is when you paste, don't choose, on this example, don't choose the second option because that will put it in as a picture and you can't actually edit the text. So you have to choose the first option. I just pressed Control V, which is why I didn't come across those, but if you right click, you have more than one option for pasting. Okay, we're gonna select all 3 of these. So click one of them. Doesn't matter which one. If your last one's already selected, choose it. Hold down your Shift key, select the second one. Hold down your Shift key, select the third one. So they're all 3 selected at the same time. Now we're going to group them together. So on the Drawing Tools Format tab, On the right-hand side, you're going to choose group and then group. We selected all three of them, Anthony. So select one by clicking on it, hold down your shift key, select the second one, hold down your shift key, select the third one. Go to the Drawing Tools Format tab, choose group, and then you have to choose group again. It groups it together. So now instead of having three graphics, we have just one. So if I needed to move it around at this point, it's easier than moving three pieces. I just move one. But we're going to make changes to all three of these at one time. On this Drawing Tools Format tab, we're going to change the shape fill. So click the drop-down arrow next to shape fill. Make sure you're on shape and not text. We're going to choose dark green. We have two shades of green. The one we're looking at is this one, the dark green. Text to lighter 60%. This is the option. And what we're changing is the color of the shape. So it's the dark green, text to lighter 60%. We are also changing the dark or the outline color. So go to Shape Outline. We're choosing the olive green column this time, and it's the very last one. It's the olive green, accent 1, darker 50%. That's the outline around the shape. Now, when you're working on your own, you could choose eyedropper, and that becomes a color picker. So if you choose eyedropper, you can go around the page and choose any color that's on this page just by clicking on it, and it will choose that color. And so you might have that option when you're working on your own. Okay, so olive green, accent 1, darker 50%. Now we're changing the actual text, and that's under text fill. Click the drop-down arrow. Choose the dark green column, text to darker 25%. The second one from the bottom in the dark green column. So dark green, text to darker 25%. And we just changed all three of those at the same time. I like the grouping whenever you're creating a logo or something and you've got clip art and text, and you can group it together and move it around your page. All right, before we go to the next step, I want you to go to OneDrive. And we're still in this chapter 4, should still be open on your screen. Open this GA gift certificate. You don't have to open it in Word, just let it open right here in Word Online, just like mine is right here. Don't have to go any farther than that. So GA gift certificate or gift cert. Now go back to PowerPoint. I had you open that because the next steps we're actually going to insert a screenshot, and that's the screenshot we're going to use. So we're on slide 10. We are going to insert a new slide with title only layout. The title is gift certificate. Gift certificate. Now I'm going to click out of that title and click in the blank space somewhere on the slide. And I'm going to click the Insert tab, and one of our options is Screenshot. When I click on that drop-down arrow, it will show me what windows are available to screenshot. And normally it will actually show you a thumbnail. For some reason, mine, it did this last class also. When I go back, there we go. Go ahead and select it, the one with the gift certificate in it. Mine gives me this weird thing that asks if I want to hyperlink it. Say no if it asks you that. It did not ask me that on my laptop. It gives me a screenshot of the whole page. We're going to leave the whole page here. This is just so you know how to use a screenshot. Sometimes it comes in very handy. And we're going to resize this screenshot to 3.5 inches high. So on our picture tools format toolbar on the far right, the height is going to be 3.5. Then we're going to distribute it horizontally and vertically. That can be found in the picture tools format align. I'm going to just click on it and move it to the center, and you'll be able to see I get these little red smart guides that show up that show that I am in the center of the page. So you may end up using that option instead of distribute, and it was a little off on both of them. So distribute horizontally, distribute vertically. Okay, go ahead and save this. You've already saved it in the correct place, so all you need to do is click the Save Disk in the upper left-hand corner. You've already gone to Save As. You don't have to do that again. Just click the Save Disk. It will overwrite the old one and save the new one. Okay, let me show you the assignment that you have. I need to move it into your folder. There is one assessment that you have to do, and it's the one right before this, assessment number 1. It's very similar to what we just did. You might use different shapes, different pictures. There might be some pictures you have to download from the data files. But it's assessment number 1. Be sure you're working on your career PowerPoint. You're doing a little bit of research for that, because one of those days that I'll be gone is one of your work days for that PowerPoint presentation. So be sure you're working on that outside of class time, and you at least have the research finished. And then, Michaela, if you could hang on just a minute.